Horror Guys.
That's us.
That's us.
Yeah, I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
We're going to talk about some horror movies this week.
4 movies and a short, like
We
always.
saw them. We liked them.
What do we got?
We have They Live from 1988.
I forgot my sunglasses.
Science fiction, action-y kind of thing. And we'll look at kind of a goofy sort of Peter Cushing film that didn't fare so well, called The Ghoul from 1975.
I had fun watching it, and then the more I thought about it, the more I hated it.
Yeah, this one, it has that effect on me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, some movies you think about them more and you like them more and you enjoy thinking about them, and this one was the opposite.
The more you thought, the dumber it got.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and then we got Paranormal Activity from 2007, and we'll get Underground in 2005's The Descent.
Nice.
Or The Decent, if you mispronounce it.
Yeah, and we're not going to talk about them here much, but if you go over to horrorbulletin.com, you can read our reviews of The Walking Dead.
It was a Boris Karloff
Not
work.
the zombie movie. It's a Boris Karloff movie from 1936.
Mm-hmm.
And also Targets from 1968.
And that one's very interesting.
One of
That's
Karloff's last movies.
Yeah, and it's kind of him playing himself
Pretty
in
much.
his later life. Yeah, he's playing
An old horror star.
old washed-up horror
up.
movie. Yeah, who's it's like a movie within a movie almost, because they use some of his real old movies as clips in this movie, and it's actually pretty clever how they do it.
Barely horror movie, but it's certainly horror related.
Crime thriller.
Which is why it's not on the main show. It's in the bonus section.
Yeah, but I'd really recommend that one.
Yeah, it's good.
One worth checking out.
Again,
and I had never heard of it before even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is over at horrorbulletin.com for our newsletter, where you can read this stuff without signing up, so you don't have to sign up. Of course, we'd like you to sign up, so that way you get it every week.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, if you want to read our regular reviews, those are posted online at horrorguys.com. So you got Horror Guys for this stuff that you're hearing on the show, and Horror Bulletin for the stuff that you're not hearing on the show. So complicated.
And
so tough.
We have books. I understand there's a new book coming soon.
Maybe.
I hear rumors. Strong rumors.
It's not all there yet, but there's another book coming soon. Yes.
The works of Roger Corman.
Oh my, spoilers.
Spoiler. I spoiled it right out loud.
All his horror films.
And he's done a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Besides his directing, he's really done a lot behind the scenes.
Well, the book isn't going to cover everything he's done. Just the ones he's directed and just the
very
horror
horror-centric.
Yeah, very horror-centric.
But what a career that guy's had.
Yeah. If you want to look at
and
that.
Still having. He's still working.
He is still going, yeah. If you want to check those out, go to horrorguys.com/books, and the whole list is there. All right. So, do we have any stinker movies this week? We mentioned we didn't care for the Ghoul.
I think
too
the
much.
Ghoul is probably the lowest on our rating this week.
What's your favorite?
Oh, I think it's They Live still. They Live.
They Live?
They Live, yeah. Of these 4, that's my favorite.
I saw They Live when it first came out. I thought it was kind of stupid.
I liked it then.
I liked it a lot better now.
This is actually the 3rd time I saw it.
But I think I like The Descent better.
Okay.
Well, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go! And first up, we have They Live from 1988.
Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Directed by John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Halloween and The Thing. And
Science
this.
fiction-y.
And this.
How do you categorize this? It's got some horror elements to it. It's heavily science fiction, though.
It's a mind control, alien monsters.
Invaders from space.
I know. I hesitate to call it sci-fi, but it kind of is because they're aliens.
Certainly is.
Yeah.
They're aliens using technology way beyond ours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Written by Ray Nelson and John Carpenter. Stars Roddy Piper, Keith David, and Meg Foster. Hour and 34 minutes. If you have never heard of this one, there is a trailer in the show notes.
It's really worth checking out.
Spoiler free. It's a science fiction action thriller with elements of horror. Overall, it has held up really well over the years, and it's a lot of fun to watch. We both liked it.
Yeah, we did.
All right, so spoil it for us. What happens in this movie?
Well, Nada, which is Roddy Piper's character.
He's never actually named in the movie.
Yeah,
Nada comes from IMDb, which I assume
means
is official
nothing.
in some way.
Yeah,
He's the man with no name.
Yeah. That's how
But for purposes of the
how he
review,
rolls.
he's called Nada.
Yeah. Well, he walks into Los Angeles with everything he owns on his back. He goes to the employment office. He's just come from Denver, where the economy has failed. He walks past a street feature talking about how the human spirit has been corrupted. And he talks about the owners of the human race. Our masters are all around you.
He's one of those crazy conspiracy theory preachers, you can tell.
And this is kind of almost a parallel reality, I think. In 1988, the economy wasn't that bad, but this plays it up. This is a world where the economy is worse than it was in 1988. It really has a lot more has gone to pot.
But there's reasons for that, as we'll get to.
Yes. Well, he soon manages to get a job in construction, which is a way for Roddy Piper to get shirtless for the camera. And he makes friends with Frank, who tells him there's a place to stay, and it's a sort of a homeless camp where there's a shelter and good food. A man named Gilbert is in charge, and we hear stories about the wealthy taking advantage of the workers. Nada's a bit more optimistic. I believe in America. I follow the rules. But Frank is a little more realistic and cynical. Well, some hacker keeps breaking into TV signals, and that really comes forward with some paranoid stuff. There's a guy keeps popping up on overriding the network televisions. And Nada recognizes what the TV hacker is saying is the same thing the street preacher was saying.
So word for word in some cases.
Yeah, there's some weirdness there. Yeah. Well, after the hacker finishes talking, everyone has a headache. Nada watches Gilbert lead the old priest into the church at 4 a.m. Something strange there. He's a very savvy, smart, observant guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the next morning, Nada goes over to the church and finds "They Live, We Sleep" painted on the wall. And, from the outside, this looks like a functioning church, and you hear the choir practicing and sermons going on inside. He gets in there. It's a recording playing over speakers. It's a fake church.
No choir required.
Yeah. He finds a secret room full of boxes. Doesn't know what's in them. In the front of the church, we see Gilbert and the TV hacker setting up equipment. They're behind the secret transmission. And they're running some kind of secret underground operation. As he leaves, he sees a helicopter flying over. Well, Nada notices Gilbert and his men unloading boxes from the church into a truck. Frank warns him not to get involved. Well, that night, Nada watches as the church gets raided by the police, and there are a lot of police. And they really get carried away. They bulldoze the whole homeless camp and drive everybody off and round some of them up, and Nada barely escapes. The next morning, the people gather to pick up what they can, but the place is just gone. There's nothing left. Nada goes to the church, which is a burnt-out husk, but he opens the secret room and takes one of the boxes, thinking that's something valuable. Well, no, it's just full of cheap sunglasses. He hides the box and takes one pair of the glasses. And he puts the glasses on, and suddenly he sees things that weren't there before. Obey appears on a billboard. Marry and reproduce on another. Consume. No independent thought. And others. It's like the subliminal messages that are under everything suddenly become fully visible to him with this filtered sunglasses. So, magazines are nothing but page after page of the stuff. Until he takes the glasses off, everything looks normal again. And there's more. Some people look strange too, kind of skeletal. The whole world is being told to sleep, and the skeletal people are everywhere. Now, there's not large numbers of them. We still outnumber them, but they're
common enough.
Infiltrated and just blending in with us. Well, when Nada confronts a woman, one of the alien women, she tells her watch, "I've got one that can see." Uh-oh. And they all start closing in on him. Well, the cops show up and want to know about the glasses. He manages to overpower them and get their weapons. He walks into a bank and shoots the place up, only the non-humans. And he's got one of the awesome lines of, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum."
Wow.
Yeah. Well, he soon learns that the strange people have technology way more advanced than we do.
There's drones flying around through the streets.
Yeah, and those are invisible unless you've got the sunglasses on, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they've got watches that are some kind of high-tech link.
Radio watches and teleport watches.
Which, we didn't have anything like the Apple Watch in 1988. And
Didn't have drones that flew around either.
Yeah, these are way more advanced than today's Apple Watches. So, yeah. Well, Nada then carjacks a woman named Holly, and he ends up at her place to avoid the cops. He tells her the story, and of course she thinks he's crazy. She knocks him out the window and calls the police. He soon finds out that he dropped the glasses in her apartment. Yeah, great. Well, he goes back to the job site. Frank wants nothing to do with him. They all know he shot a pair of cops and a bunch of people, and his face is all over the TV, because they control the media, of course, and this is...
Well, he did shoot some cops. Of course that would be on the news.
Well, they were alien cops.
Well,
so, yeah.
Technically.
Yeah, but nobody knows that, yeah. Well, he goes back for the box of sunglasses, gets one, and makes Frank try them on after some convincing.
Most unnecessary fight scene in a movie ever. It goes on for like 10
and it
minutes.
Goes on and on, yeah. Well, Gilbert shows up and invites the two to a meeting. They now have contact lenses that do the same thing as the sunglasses, and they work much better. Gilbert warns them about humans that sell out to the ghouls. They're aliens, and they're changing the Earth's environment to be more like theirs with pollution. Gilbert wants to find the alien signal and shut it off. That's the signal that's masking everything, and if that goes away, everybody will just be able to see like things as they truly are.
And of course, there's only one signal that covers the entire planet, and it happens to be based in their city.
Isn't that convenient?
Very.
Yeah. That's definitely a weak point on the aliens' technology.
And if you ever decide to invade a planet with droids, make sure they're all controlled by one spaceship.
Oh yes, definitely.
This has never come up again.
Well, Holly is there now, and she's sure the signal isn't coming from her station. She works for the news station. And she's a bit more sympathetic after she tried on his glasses and apologizes for hitting him. She thought she killed him.
I see them now.
Yeah. Well, suddenly the place is raided by the police, who shoot most of the rebels, including Gilbert. Nada and Frank get out. They're cornered and accidentally activate their watch. They took one of the alien watches, and there's an emergency escape teleport feature that takes them to a tunnel under the city.
Zap!
Well, they find a ballroom, mostly filled with the sellout humans. A man announces that the underground terrorist network has been destroyed. And basically what the aliens have infiltrated, power and money, and they're just gradually running the world. So there is an Illuminati. It's aliens.
But you can join them.
Yes.
You can be a sellout.
You can be a sellout. They ran into one of the homeless guys from earlier, in fact. He's all cleaned up and he's wearing a tux because he wants, don't you want some of the good life? And, he's got it now. They even see a teleporter to other planets that the aliens are on. And he gives them a tour because, he thinks they're new to to being sellouts, and takes them right to the nerve center of the operation where the signal operates and originates. And he explains there aren't countries or anything like that anymore. Not really. It's just all over. The aliens are operating everything behind the scenes. Well, Nada and Frank start shooting and blowing things up, and they work their way through the offices to the roof where the alien antenna lies. They find Holly, who isn't on her side as much as they thought. She kills Frank.
Oops.
Yeah. Talk about a big sellout. And that was a surprise, I remember, that first time I saw it. And
I don't remember her ever playing a good guy, though.
that's not often.
Not often.
Meg Foster, yeah, she plays a
She's
villain.
got evil eyes.
Yeah, it's the eyes.
Yeah.
Well, Nada gets to the roof, and Holly pulls a gun on him. Don't interfere, you can't win, she says. He shoots her, and then the dish. Snipers from the helicopter shoot Nada, but it's too late. The dish explodes. Worldwide, the newscasters turn into ghouls. All the aliens, just everywhere they are suddenly visible, and all their hidden messages. The signs suddenly decode. Everyone everywhere sees the aliens as what they are. And then what happens? We don't know.
Waiting for the sequel.
Yeah.
30-some years later.
Yeah.
Sleep. Yeah, I saw this one when it came out and thought it was just a lazy way to get Roddy Piper an acting job and, maybe sell some cheap sunglasses in the process. But rewatching it today, it's actually pretty good. It wasn't just that. I think the stunt casting of Roddy Piper probably hurt more than it helped. Because he was a very well-known wrestler at the time.
Yeah, he was.
And wrestlers can't act. Everybody knows that, or knew it in '88.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It may have changed a bit since then.
He's decent, though. But that fight, part of the problem with, I think, with him being a wrestler, too, the wrestling style combat, I don't think translated good to the movie. And that was very wrestly, the fight that Nada and Frank had. Very overblown wrestling.
It was overblown, it was overlong, and it didn't look particularly convincing.
Yeah, I think they would have gone better with, actual movie fight choreography, not wrestling style.
Abbott and Costello had more realistic looking fights.
Yeah, I think that might be my biggest complaint about the movie.
Obey. The fight scene between Nada and Frank is not terribly convincing, which is considering Piper's background. There's a lot of humor, intentional and probably some otherwise. Still, it never does get boring, and it's got a very not-so-subtle message.
Consume.
And yes, I like that a lot more today than I did in the 80s.
Yeah, it's my favorite of the week.
What's next?
The Ghoul from 1975, which is also known as Night of the Ghoul sometimes. Directed by Freddie Francis. Written by Anthony Hines. Stars Peter Cushing, John Hurt, Alexandro Bastedo. Runtime's an hour and 20 minutes, and there's a trailer on YouTube. We have a link to that. And the poster is really cool, actually.
Yeah.
The poster is better than the movie.
It looks like it ought to be a Hammer film, but it's not a Hammer film.
It certainly has that style.
Freddie Francis and Anthony Hines were Hammer regulars. Peter Cushing, of course, was a regular. Everything about this screams Hammer, but
and
it was a
huge,
competing company.
Huge fancy house.
Same
the
sets,
settings.
Yes.
Yeah.
If this had said Hammer on it, it would fit right at home.
Yeah, it would have.
But it's not. And after you think about it for 10 minutes after it's over, you see there's a reason this isn't as famous as the Hammer films.
Yeah. Spoiler free. It takes a while to get going with a Great Gatsby kind of beginning, but it's worth the wait. More or less. I mean, the cast is great, and the story is interesting, but it's kind of...
There's some details that hurt.
Yeah, details that the more you think about, ooh. Yeah, and it's really hard to find a decent copy. If you can, it's worth the watch.
Yeah, we watched this, I think it was filmed off a videotape.
We didn't hate it, but yeah.
It was a horrible copy.
This apparently has never made it to DVD and never got remastered or anything, so...
Which is probably another reason it's not so well known.
Mm-hmm. Things you see out there are copies of copies.
All right, now the big synopsis. It's the 1920s. Daphne wanders the dark house. She hears someone whispering her name. "Daphne, help me," it hisses. She goes up the stairs to the locked door at the top of the stairway. She goes inside and finds a man hanging from a meat hook through the neck. Then they turn on the lights, and we see that, it's just a special effect for the party. This was all just a joke.
And she says, aha, I didn't jump, I didn't flinch. And this is just rich kids bored and having kicks, having a party.
Then they all go downstairs and dance.
And drink.
Yeah. Daphne wants to drive to the beach, and her boyfriend Jeffrey has a nice car, so they get ready to go. The host comes out and explains it. Hey, guys, it's 200 miles to the beach. Well, then
Even better.
Challenge the host to a race instead. They're going to race both cars to Land's End, what they call the beach. Jeffrey is going with Daphne, and Billy is going with Angela. So we've got 4 characters. I don't think they're teenagers.
I think they're supposed to be
very young 20s, and they really aren't. But it's a horror movie. We have to make some adjustments.
They're home alone, and all the old people are gone, so they're partying it up.
People in the old days all looked older, and smoking.
Rich, and nothing else to do, so party.
Well, they get out the cranks and finally get their cars to start. It's all very Gatsby-esque. Daphne drives like a maniac, and everyone else tries to keep their dinners down. Jeffrey finally pulls over so that Angela can puke, and the others finally pull ahead. It suddenly gets foggy, and then Billy and Daphne run out of gas. Oops. Unexpected racing.
And this is a day when gas stations were a little few and far between.
Cars were new.
Yeah.
Jeffrey takes the empty gas cans to go look for a place to fill up, while Phoebe takes a nap in the car. She gets up and goes for a walk, where she's followed by a creepy man. She runs to a big house with a gate, but the man says don't go up there. She goes in anyway, and Tom, who looks an awful lot like John Hurt,
Yeah, he
throws a
does.
rock and knocks her out. Daphne wakes up in Tom's trapping cabin. He's not very nice and smacks her around a bit. She gives him the knee, ouch, and then runs straight into an old man.
Peter Cushing.
He invites her inside that old house behind the gate. He asks her where she left the car, and he has his creepy servant Aya prepare a room for her. He says sometimes the fog persists for days. He is Dr. Lawrence, and he talks about his dead wife. In the kitchen, we see Aya throwing out Tom, who's hanging around causing trouble. Lawrence plays violin for Daphne, and Lawrence explains that Tom is his gardener, and he sends a Tom out looking for Billy, who should probably be returning to the car soon. Tom finds Billy asleep in the car and pushes it over a cliff, and Tom laughs and now takes now dead Billy's cigarette case.
Tom's kind of a jerk.
Yeah, but he's a fun jerk.
He is, yeah.
Daphne finds a chapel in the house, and Aya gets agitated to find her there, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. They've got this giant church chapel thing in the house.
And why?
And Lawrence is a Christian preacher.
Yeah.
It comes up a little later.
Yeah, I don't.
Why would that be a problem?
I don't know.
Lawrence tells that he spent many years in India and brought Aya back with him. He used to be a clergyman, but something vile and obscene happened over there that caused his wife to kill herself, and his son was corrupted in the process.
And might I throw in that might be another reason why this one kind of gets swept under the rug too. Aya's brown face.
Yeah, she's a very, very white British actress
British
playing an
actress,
Indian woman.
Browned up to play an Indian. Yeah, an exotic India woman.
She's brown face, and she's got the Indian accent, and yeah.
Very stereotypical.
Yeah. Oh, actually, far more evil than stereotypical. She's the problem behind the whole film, really. She's the evil one.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Tom returns and claims that Billy left a note that he's gone home. Daphne takes a bath, and someone watches from a hidden place. She comes downstairs and finds Lawrence praying, asking to release me from my vow. That night, after Daphne has gone to bed, Aya goes upstairs and unlocks the door. Someone with bloody feet comes out and heads straight for Daphne's room. He stabs her repeatedly. Wait, what? What? We're only like 45 minutes in. I thought she was the star.
Thought she was going to be the main character. I guess not.
Well, later, Tom watches in awe as Aya cuts up the body for food preparation. When she leaves the room, he steals something off the table, which he stashes in his cabin. I thought it was going to be like her nose or something.
Giblets.
I think it was her underwear. We'll see that later.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely fit in with his personality.
Steal a piece of meat. There's no reason to believe that he's a cannibal.
I didn't until you didn't mention that before, but yeah, that makes perfect sense. He stole her underwear.
We see that later. We see the underwear later.
Okay. I missed that.
Yeah, Dr. Lawrence cries in the chapel. He knows what happened. Elsewhere, Jeffrey and Angela are called in by the police to identify Billy's body. They ask about Daphne, but they didn't find her body. The policeman takes them to the wreck, and Jeffrey wants to search the area. Angela can't drive, but she does try and nearly runs over Tom before running off the road. This time, Angela wakes up in Tom's cabin. Reruns.
Yep, deja vu.
Jeffrey comes back to where he left the car and finds the wreck, but not Angela. Jeffrey finds the house and goes inside. Lawrence and Aya find him and demand to know why he's in their house. Lawrence lies that Daphne had been there just a few hours ago, but has gone to town by bus. They got no gas stations, but they got a bus?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, Lawrence...
Horse-drawn bus.
Oh, yeah, Lawrence says he suspects that Angela took the bus as well. Jeffrey leaves, unsatisfied. Tom tells Lawrence that Angela knows too much. Tom drags Angela to the big house. Elsewhere, Jeffrey's car gets stuck, so he hasn't really left yet. Jeffrey chases Tom through the swamp and gets stuck in the quicksand, but soon so does Tom. Jeffrey gets out and uses this to his advantage, interrogating Tom before he sinks. He reveals that there's something in the house that eats human flesh. Jeffrey confronts Dr. Lawrence about the lies he's been told, and Lawrence catches Aya doing some kind of evil ritual and stops her. Jeffrey runs upstairs, but Lawrence cries out, "Leave him to me! He'll kill you!" Jeffrey opens the door upstairs and gets a knife in the forehead.
He really should have listened to Lawrence.
Yeah.
He tried to warn him. He really did.
Aya pulls the knife out of Jeffrey and gets cooking. Literally.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, who apparently got out of the quicksand, goes to see Angela. "You've got to be nice to me now," he threatens. She whacks him over the head as the Ghoul walks in. The green, bald, somewhat blurry man stabs Tom to death and closes in on Angela until Lawrence shoots him several times.
That's his son.
Yeah. Angela runs away, and Lawrence shoots himself. Okay, all the loose ends.
I was cooking up the bodies for him.
Well, Peter Cushing's getting older here. This was 2 years before Star Wars, and several years after his family issues had ended. So it's kind of like peak Cushing, if you like the old version of the aging actor. John Hurt is very young here, but still puts on a really great performance as a sometimes funny, sometimes psychopathic Tom. This isn't a Hammer film. It's from Tyburn Productions, but it's got Peter Cushing, Veronica Carlson, and it was directed by Freddie Francis. It's definitely got the Hammer feel about it, to say the least.
Sure does.
But was India really so exotic in 1975 that explains all the demonic weirdness?
It doesn't seem like it.
Now, in 1921, when the story takes place, India was a far-off, strange, alien place with probably all kinds of stories about it.
Well, and that's probably what they were going with. They were trying to keep it to 1921.
But the film came out in 1975, and those people should have known better.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be like us, talking about...
Well, it wasn't 1975, though. In the movie, they were all in 1921.
But the movie was made in 1975. You can't expect the audiences to go along with this crap that they know know better.
Perhaps this is not why it's not a huge hit.
It's dumb. Yeah. It'd be like, I don't know, something from talking about Sherlock Holmes being true today. Everybody knows that's just fictional stories. Mm-hmm. That's not true. But if you pretend that it was, it's a little hard to believe.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, John tells Aya that you people worship cows, blatantly pointing out that most Indians are vegetarians, yet somehow Lawrence's son came back from India as a flesh-eating monster. How does that happen?
Well, they don't eat cows. They eat other animals.
They don't eat humans.
Well, not most of them don't. Actually,
well, okay, probably if one or two do. But
yeah, I don't think the majority of Indians really are vegetarian.
Yeah, they are. If they're Hindu, they're vegetarian. That's the way it works.
Yeah, but...
Well, I guess you could be a crappy Hindu, but serious ones are vegetarians, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was reading just recently, too, of course, the cow is sacred to the Hindu religion. Mm-hmm. You just don't eat beef. But not everybody in India is... and
True.
It's a small percentage of the population are not Hindu, are beef eaters. But that's millions of people. Their population is so huge, that's still millions of people, and the beef industry is big. And it's really a conflict.
Going right back to your argument, in 1921.
Hindu extremists, really, they'll kill ranchers and, there's actual, attacks and, fights over it and stuff,
But in 1921, they didn't have McDonald's in India, so I imagine that there were a lot less beef eaters. Mm-hmm. Especially back in those days, it probably would get you killed if you did it. Some kind of sacrilege or something.
More so, yeah.
Well, anyway, getting off that topic.
Yeah.
The first 20 minutes are actually about a car race, and the main stars don't appear until much later. The film turns out it was set in the 1920s, simply so they could take advantage of the sets built for the Great Gatsby film, which came out about the same time. But that was all right, because it gave us some interesting cars and sets.
It's almost like two movies in one.
You betcha. It's a surprisingly complicated story, and it feels pretty long. It's really kind of good, and it's a shame as how hard it is to find a good copy of the film today. Still, though, the whole evil Indian things probably wouldn't fly today, even if it weren't laughable to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really want to, go to India and come back a flesh-eating cannibal. Did you watch a short?
We did. We saw The Waiting Room, a brand new one this year, 2022, which was directed by Jacob Arbidier.
Yes.
Yes. Written by Jacob also. Stars James Nichols II, Vicky Hinson, Tiana Montgomery. Runtime is only 4.5 minutes.
A shorter one.
And it's available on YouTube.
What happens?
Well, a relapsing addict finds himself trapped in a waiting room. Medical waiting room. Looks perfectly ordinary. He's just there for an appointment, right? Well, no. He's kind of stuck between realities. And he's guided to a door that leads him to his greatest fear.
Ah, drugs. Wow.
Yeah. The actor definitely looks afraid of his situation throughout, and he's clearly having doubts about going to the rehab clinic, as if it's not going to be easy. But if he doesn't do it, what awaits him later?
You can go into rehab, or then there's this other thing.
And this was really well done, I thought. Really creepy and, just a simple set, but so effectively used.
Yeah, it's all very simple but good.
Yes.
Also simple but good is our next film, Paranormal Activity from 2007. The first one. And I think there's at least 5.
I haven't seen them all.
Directed by Oren Peli, written by him, along with Katie Detherson, Micah Sloat, and Mark Fredericks. Runtime hour and 26 minutes. And spoiler-free, what happens?
Spoiler-free, it's creepy, suspenseful, builds nicely. A found footage film that sells itself as real events being recorded. Events that get worse and worse as the film moves along. And how far will things go? Well, you have to watch it to find out.
Or you can just listen to the full synopsis coming up now.
Yes, you are warned.
On September 18th, 2006, in San Diego, Micah has bought a brand new, gigantic video camera, because cameras in 2006 were huge.
Bigger than what we have now.
That was like 1 year from the iPhone, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But okay, it's a movie, so you need to see it's a camera.
And this is a top-of-the-line thing for what was available in 2006.
Yeah.
He's got the best of everything.
Well, Katie thinks he's insane and spent too much, but he says he wants to record any kind of paranormal activity that happens. Once they figure out what's really going on, they can figure out how to deal with it. If it's a neighbor kid, they'll figure it out. So we don't know what's going on at this point, but apparently they've had some issues already.
Yeah, they've alluded to something going on.
Yeah, they got the camera to figure it out. Well, Micah sets up the camera in the kitchen while they're eating, and another one in the bedroom. He starts recording every part of their rather ordinary, boring lives, but the first scary sound they hear turns out to be the ice maker in the other room.
False alarm.
Scary. So then they set up the camera in the bedroom and turn in around 11:30. At 2:08, we hear footsteps.
Yeah, it looks like he's got multiple setups too. He's got a main camera that he can carry around with him, but he's got some set up to record rooms continuously.
Yeah. Well, the next morning, Katie's keys are in the middle of the floor downstairs. They've called in a psychic to come over and give them a reading, and the psychic asked them for details of their experiences. Both Katie and her sister used to see someone standing at the foot of their beds when they were little. She's moved houses several times since then, but it keeps coming back, so it seems to be about her, not a specific house.
Mm-hmm.
Micah shows the psychic all his recording equipment, and we get a walkthrough of the whole house. The psychic explains that these things feed on negative energy, and it may be a demonic presence, but the psychic doesn't really deal with those. You need to call in a different kind of expert.
Mm-hmm. Demonologist.
He gives them a phone number for a demonologist. He also warns against trying to communicate with it, as that's just opening the door to let it in more. Katie is pleased with the meeting, but Micah laughs it off. That night, they get to bed at 12:31. At 2:09, the bedroom door moves just a little. The next morning, they look at the footage. Micah wants more of the ghost footage. And that night at 2:55 a.m., Katie has a nightmare, and then they hear something downstairs. Well, nothing happens for a few days, so Micah yells at the ghost or whatever it is and calls it worthless. That night at 3:13, they hear something again.
Yeah, all of this footage is time-stamped and marked with what day it is, too, how many days into it we are.
And some of these things go on for like an hour, and we can see a little time lapse.
Mm-hmm.
Something outside roars, and when they go downstairs, the chandelier is swinging. Katie thinks maybe the demon is acting up because of the camera. It wasn't this bad before the camera, but Michael doesn't believe that's it. On night number 15 at 1:35 a.m., Katie gets up and just stands there for 2 hours without moving.
Fortunately, they forward through that for us.
Yeah, they do,
We don't get to see her standing there for 2 hours, literally.
But if you're watching the camera, you can see the counter moving at the bottom, how fast this is.
Mm-hmm.
So then she walks out of the room. The next morning, Micah finds her sleeping outside, and she's in some kind of a trance. Next day, Micah brings home a Ouija board, even though the psychic specifically warned them not to do that.
Bad move. I tried to tell them, bad move, don't do it. But
You did?
They didn't listen to me.
They didn't.
No.
Katie gets angry and leaves. The camera shows the Ouija board doing its thing all by itself and then spontaneously setting itself on fire. Later that night, nothing happens.
But
The next night, they put baby powder all over the floor in case the thing leaves footprints. Around 3:15 a.m., there are sounds of steps again, and they both wake up. They do in fact find footprints, as well as the attic entrance in the hall closet ceiling is partly open. Micah goes up there and finds a partially burnt photo of Katie as a child. Katie says that's impossible. It's from her childhood home that burned down years ago. How would it get up there?
impossible.
On night 18, someone turns on the light downstairs and comes up the steps. It then slams the bedroom door and beats on it from the outside. When they go outside to look, something locks them out of the bedroom. Well, they bring the psychic back and he refuses to stay. He says the energy here is terrible and the demon doesn't want him there. He says leaving the house won't help at all, it'll just follow them. Call the demonologist when he gets back in the country in a few days.
Yeah, that poor guy just wanted out of there.
Yeah.
He just noped right out of there as fast as he could.
Nope.
Yeah.
On night number 19, something messes with their bed sheets while they sleep. There's also activity in that hall closet again. The following night, the entity simply pulls Katie out of bed and drags her down the hall. Much screaming ensues, and Katie's got a big bite mark on her back now. Micah wants to go to a hotel, but Katie wants to stay. It's better if we stay. And she sounds almost possessed.
Almost, or maybe, just kind of given up. It's hard to tell.
Night 21. Katie wakes up and the covers slide off Micah. She walks to his side of the bed and stands there for 2 hours. Then she starts screaming. Micah runs downstairs and everything gets very quiet. There are footsteps coming up the stairs, and we see Katie throw Micah across the room at the camera. Then she attacks the camera. Rawr! Micah's body was discovered on October 11, 2006. Katie's whereabouts remain unknown.
And my reaction at the end was like, well, that's it? I don't know. I wasn't satisfied.
What were you expecting?
I don't know what I was expecting.
To see the monster?
Something more. I was unsatisfied.
Well, the audio isn't great, and the video looks just like it came off a handheld video camera, which fits the story perfectly, but also gets a little annoying to watch after an hour and a half. Still, the story progresses quickly, and the various events happen fairly often, so it doesn't really get too bogged down in details. But you gotta wonder, they couldn't just stay up all night watching movies or something? Change their schedules to night shift? At least go to bed with the lights on in all the rest of the house. What's with this turn on all the lights and go to bed?
You don't have to do that. Yeah.
Well, it's super ultra low budget, but it's also very suspenseful, and I thought worked really well. You know things are gonna happen, and they just keep on getting worse, but where will it end and how far will it go? I liked it, and Kevin liked it, all the way up to the ending, which he hated. There were actually 3 endings considered. One where Katie kills Micah and then herself. One where the police come in and find her in the morning, of course unaware of that she had killed Micah. And of course the one we got. I'm not sure that any of those would have been better, but there we are. That's what we got.
That's what we got.
Which takes us to our last movie of the week.
The Descent from 2005, a creepy piece of work. This was directed by Neil Marshall, also written by Neil Marshall. Stars Shauna MacDonald, Natalie Mendoza, and Alex Reed. Runtime is an hour and 39 minutes. And there's a trailer.
The poster here, the poster in the post says, the best horror thriller since Alien.
Well,
I wouldn't go that far.
I wouldn't go that far.
Although it's pretty good.
And the graphic on the poster is really cool. Did you notice that?
It's 6 women.
It's the women, and the way they're posed and lit, it's the shape of a skull.
There's 3 of them, and their feet look like teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a neat poster.
Yeah. It is a primarily all-female cast.
Yeah.
Spoiler-free, a group of friends who like to go on adventures. And when they go to cave exploring, what could go wrong? Well, quite a bit, as the stress of their situation brings out the best in some and the worst in others. And now, boy, is there some stress. Really, and really, this is great all around. The effects and the setting, the acting, really impressive.
It's really good. Definitely recommend it. Mm-hmm. But here comes the spoilers.
You are warned.
A trio of girls go whitewater rafting, and it looks pretty extreme. On the way home, we get the impression from sideways glances that Sarah's husband might be having an affair with Juno. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before that goes anywhere, he is instantly killed in a Final Destination-style road accident. The daughter Jessica is killed as well. Credits roll. Well, I guess that affair is not going anywhere.
Nope, and she's not officially going to hear about it.
Nope. 1 year later, in the Appalachian Mountains, the girls arrive at a Chattanooga National Park. That's not right. It's Chattooga.
Chattooga.
Yeah, fictional.
Uh-huh.
Not to be confused with Chattanooga, which...
No, not that.
Not the same thing.
Right.
Sarah, Juno, Beth, Rebecca, Sam, and Holly all arrive. Sam and Rebecca are sisters, and Sam is almost done with medical school. Holly is a thrill seeker who is just now meeting the others, and she's an Australian or New Zealander or something. They're here for some caving, but Holly says that stuff's for tourists. Juno promises otherwise. No one can say anything at all about family without setting Sarah off. She's clearly still bothered very much by her loss. By the time morning rolls around, they all have hangovers.
And this scene was, I thought that beginning was so short but so very effective. Of setting,
you know who
setting
everybody
up
is?
These characters.
You know a little bit of their history?
And how they get along together and who,
and it's not
who
a lot
likes
of
who
boring
best.
talky.
Yeah, it was really well done.
Yeah.
Very, very good writing.
Well, they all drive way out into the country to get to the cave, and Juno leaves the guidebook to the cave in the car. She says she doesn't need it. It's a great big vertical hole in the mountain, straight down. They go down by rope and start walking through the huge dark caves, and it all looks very strenuous and claustrophobic. I always wondered with these kind of cave movies. Mm-hmm. They drop down these ropes that are like 70, 80 feet straight down. Mm-hmm. How do they get back up?
Climb.
One hand over the other? Have you ever done that?
Well, they got a scoochy tool that'll let you scooch up a rope.
Ah, the professional scoochy tool.
The professional scooochy tool, yes. But their intent here was to go out another way. They weren't coming back that way.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Eventually, they try to find another way.
Well, that's what Juno's plan was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah gets stuck in a tight spot, and they have to talk her through getting out of it. As they resolve that, there's a cave-in, so they can't just go back out the way they came in.
And that made their minds up, right there.
Yeah. They know there are other ways out of the cave, except Juno didn't bring the damn guidebook. But it doesn't matter, because they didn't go to the cave system in the book anyway. That was a tourist trap. This cave system is new, and no one has been down here before.
And no one knows where they are.
Yay!
Isn't that great?
They slowly cross a huge vertical chasm. Rebecca spots a python. Python,
I think, but with their accents, you heard them pronounce both ways.
Oh, they did. They were saying python.
They were saying python or python or Don't
One of them
for
stick
sure.
it in the rock clicky things.
Yes.
Not to be confused with your scoocher device.
A scoochy uppy thing. All these technical climbing
Well, anyway,
tools.
they find one of those clippy-yawny rocky things already in place. They aren't the first to come down here after all, but this one looks like it may be 100 years old. The others make it across fairly quickly, and we start seeing a little blame and hostility between Sarah and Juno. On the other side, they find cave paintings of buffaloes and maybe a map. We also see that they aren't alone in the cave. Something drools in the darkness.
Ew.
Holly thinks she sees daylight and runs until she painfully falls into a hole.
Yeah, that was a dumb move.
Yeah, it wasn't daylight, it was phosphorescence.
She got carried away and not careful.
Well, she badly breaks her leg, but Sarah hears a baby crying further down the tunnel and sees something humanoid down there. No one else sees anything, and of course they think she's crazy. But not long after, they find the bones of hundreds of dead animals. They start to scream, and soon they all see the naked, white, man-like thing crawling on the ceiling. One of them then rips Holly's throat out. One attacks Juno as well, but she manages to kill hers, and then Beth too, by accident. Oops, watch where you're swinging.
Mm-hmm.
Sam and Rebecca get separated from the others. Sarah gets knocked out, and when she awakens, she's alone, except for a camera with infrared imaging. She watches a gang of the creatures eat Holly's remains. Sarah finds Beth, who isn't quite dead yet after all. Beth warns Sarah to watch out for Juno. I think she thinks she tried to kill her on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
She even tells Sarah about Juno's affair with her dead husband before she dies for real this time.
Cat's out of the bag now.
Oh, that's some great timing.
Yeah.
That's just great.
Yeah.
First you get us lost in the cave, now I find out you're screwing my dead husband.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the creatures seem to be blind, but they have other senses, especially when Sam's watch alarm goes off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always happens.
But it works okay because they throw it, and then the creature goes after the watch, so it makes a diversion.
Sam and Rebecca soon meet up with Juno again, and Sam explains that medically what these creatures are. They've evolved down here. They're completely blind, but move by sound and possibly echolocation like bats have. Still, they bring food from the surface, so all they have to do is follow them to the exit. Funny, no one's ever seen one of these things hunting at night.
They're very stealthy.
Well, they are far from town, too.
Yes.
After helping Beth die, Sarah gets chased by one of the monsters until she falls into a pit of blood. Another of the monsters literally stands on top of her while she hides silently. Juno runs into a whole room full of the creatures, and everyone panics in all directions at once. Sam dies, and Rebecca soon follows. Juno runs into Sarah, who isn't looking happy.
Mm-hmm. No, she not.
Just who I wanted to see. She asks about Beth, and Juno just says she didn't make it. Sarah knows she's lying. They continue on through the endless caverns, killing 3 more creatures. Sarah lets Juno know that she knows about the affair, and then stabs her in the leg to make her an easier catch for the creatures.
Don't have to be the fastest, just don't be the slowest. Well, Juno is now the slowest.
Sarah then runs off alone, leaving Juno to be eaten by dozens of the cave people. You don't have to be the fastest,
yes, that's right
just
here.
don't be the slowest, as the saying goes. Sarah then falls into a hole, and when she wakes up, she finds an opening to the outside world. She climbs up a mountain of bones to get to the surface. She runs through the forest toward the cars and drives several miles away before stopping for a good cry. Oh, and then she wakes up. It was just a dream.
That was a mean ending.
She's still in the cave in the dark. A cruel trick by the movie makers.
It sure was.
How do these people know each other with such different accents?
I don't know.
I mean, Holly was
They don't
from
re- they
down
don't-
under,
they
and
don't
a
completely
couple
go
of them
to
are
that.
British, and a couple of them are Americans, and I think one was German. There's no way they all grew up together.
No, don't think so.
Well, I like that there's nothing supernatural here. The monsters are simply vampire-like carnivorous cavemen, not supernatural at all.
No. Well, but
that have evolved there in
They're
the
real
caves.
animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're bipedal. They're not human.
Right.
Yeah.
And they are really neat looking too. They're kind of a mixture of Nosferatu and Gollum. There were no actual caves filmed in this movie. They were all sets.
And that's impressive.
Boy,
it's realistic looking.
usually when it's something like that, you see them running down the same corridors like 9 different times with different lightings. But this was all very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
The bone-setting scene is cringeworthy and nasty. But that's really just the beginning of the gore in this film. There are whole caverns filled with bodies and blood.
Yep.
Overall, the big thing here is the claustrophobic sets. The creatures are excellent, but the movie would still have been good even without the monsters. Just the caving gone bad would have done it for me. But then to be hunted by monsters and each other? Nice.
Mm-hmm.
This might be in one of the top 10s for me. I like this one.
It's way up there, but still not my favorite of the week. Second of the week for me.
Well, I don't think They Live is probably in your top 10.
Top 100.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's our show for this week. Stop in over at horrorguys.com and read next week's reviews before we do our podcast. Go over to horrorbulletin.com and sign up for our free spamless newsletter where you'll get pretty much everything that's written by us.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. And we'll see you next week.
We'll see ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Wrong button.